Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. Important topics discussion on polity. So we have been discussing some important topics for Gender Studies paper 2 for mains examination. Yesterday we have discussed about the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, and today also we have some more important topics such as role of women in Panchayati Raj institutions, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act that deals with the constitution of municipalities. Now the first topic that we are going to start this class with is role of women in the Panchayati Raj institutions. And in fact, at the grassroots level, women have enormous role to play. And in fact, there are number of questions in your mains examination which centered around women's role at the grassroots level and how women can actually play a key role in the Panchayati Raj institutions or in the success of the Panchayati Raj institutions. So in fact, we have discussed that this 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act has provided how much reservation it has provided. It has provided 33% of the reservation for women. So Article 243D, it provides 33% of reservation for women in panchayats and municipalities. So therefore, the origin of the Panchayati Raj institutions can be traced back to Article 40 of the Directive Principles of State Policy. Article 40 specifically talks about the local self-governance institutions, and in fact, so we knew that these local self-governance institutions play a very, very important role when it comes to the democratic decentralization. So they perform the function of decentralization of democracy, and it also results in participatory democracy, right? So it also plays a very important role in bringing in participatory democracy at the grassroots level. And similarly, it also results in decentralization of administration and governance, right? So because of all these benefits, the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts have been passed, so to recognize grassroots level democracy. Both 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts have been passed, and because of that reason we could say that panchayats are being the backbone of the grassroots democracy. And in fact, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act has been passed in the year 1992, and it has introduced a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system. And in fact, there were number of committees that were appointed for this particular purpose, and one committee that was recommended a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system was Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. So remember that this Balwant Rai Mehta Committee was constituted in the year 1957, and this Balwant Rai Mehta Committee has suggested a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system. So 3-tier in the sense that at the village level, at the block level, or at the intermediate level, and even at the district level as well. So this is what is called as a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system that has been suggested by the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. So however, Ashok Mehta Committee, another very important committee, so that committee was appointed by the Janata Party government. So this Ashok Mehta Committee has recommended a 2-tier Panchayati Raj system. So here, so they have given primacy to the block level panchayat or intermediary panchayat and the district panchayat, right? So these are two different tiers that were provided by the Ashok Mehta Committee that was appointed by the Janata Party government. Now, as part of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, Article 243 Clause D, so it has provided 33% of reservation for women and reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes as per the proportion of their population. So however, 33% of reservation is mandatory provision that has been included in 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, So it is an obligation on the part of the state legislature to provide 33% of the reservation for women in all three levels of panchayats, right? So this is a mandatory provision. But on the other hand, remember that providing reservations to OBCs is not a mandatory provision. It is not an obligatory provision. Rather, it is a voluntary provision. So you just have to understand the difference between both voluntary provision as well as obligatory or mandatory provisions. And the other thing that you should understand here is that, in fact, before 2024 there was no reservation for women in state legislative assemblies and also in Lok Sabha as well. But 106th Constitutional Amendment Act has been recently passed. This is also known as Nari Shakti Vandana Abhinayam, and this 106th Constitutional Amendment Act has provided again 33% of reservation for women in Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies. However, so the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act that has provided 33% reservation for women has inspired from already given reservation of 33% in the local self-governance institutions. So over and above 33% of reservation, there are several states such as Kerala, Bihar, they have provided 50% of reservation for women, recognizing the importance of women and also the need and necessity of their political empowerment. So because of that reason, they have provided 50% of the reservation. Now, yesterday we have discussed that despite reservation has been provided for women, either 33% reservation or more than that, but the problem is Sarpanch Pati system or Pati Pradhan system, Sarpanch Pati system, right? Or Pati Pradhan system. So this is another major problem. So that has been masking women's true political participation at the grassroots level. Now we will understand the role that women can actually play at the grassroots level in the development, inclusive growth and development, and social change, social transformation at the grassroots level, right? So we'll try to understand that aspect as well. So now, what are the provisions that are included in the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act? And those provisions are also talking about the reservation for women. Now understand, I have already discussed that this 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act has included one mandatory provision of providing 33% reservation for women at the grassroots level, and reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in proportion to their population, right? So we have already discussed these two provisions. And in fact, when we talk about women's political empowerment, particularly through the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act and providing 33% of reservation for women at the grassroots level, and in fact, it is being said that this 33% reservation given for women at the grassroots level has actually transformed many women at the grassroots level. And in fact, this 33% of reservation for women has also transformed them or also made them as new leaders, right? And in fact, women have gained a sense of empowerment. They are politically empowered and they are economically empowered, and they are able to take key decisions in the family, and that is also very, very important. And apart from that, it is also very important that the social perceptions about women should also change. The behavioral change and attitudinal changes about women being leaders should actually play a very, very important role in bridging the gender equality, and it would also leads to women empowerment and acceptance of women working in different areas, right? So therefore, it is being said that it has created a sense of empowerment among women, because women as a leaders at the grassroots level, they are started asserting greater control over the existing resources, the officials, and also all other resources, And in fact, they are also challenging the existing traditional gender roles as well. So this is a great example of how the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, by providing 33% reservation for women, actually transformed women at the grassroots level. And in fact, the 33% reservation has led to the political empowerment of women, economic empowerment of women, and they are also able to take key decisions as a leaders at the panchayat level or at the village level, and even at the family level also, right? And in fact, they are also being appreciated or lauded as a change makers, and they can also raise voice over different issues. For example, whether it is about domestic violence, whether it is about lack of access to education, healthcare for the woman, right? So they can also raise voice about the discrimination that women have been facing in the present day society. Now, how the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act has led to the political empowerment of women. So we have just discussed that it has provided 33% reservation for women. And in fact, so this 33% of reservation for the woman, it has resulted in a greater participation of women in the election process, either directly or indirectly. Now, when reservation, a certain amount of seats are being reserved for the woman, so women should come forward, women should actually be part of the election process, right? And that is very, very important, and that would result in the political empowerment of women, acceptance of the society, particularly the role that women can actually play here. And in fact, the panchayats at the village level and 33% reservation for women at the village level is considered as a nursery for creating women politicians for national politics. And in fact, there are a lot of women politicians who are members of different state legislative assemblies and even the members of parliament. They even served at the grassroots level as well. So therefore, we could say that it actually form a foundation for women, right? So over a period of time, they could actually rise over the hierarchy. And even the participation of common women citizens in various activities. So apart from not just participating in elections, not just winning elections at the grassroots level, so when a reservation for women has been given, in fact, it creates a sense among women that they could readily participate in the Gram Sabha meetings. And in fact, according to some data, their participation in Gram Sabha meetings has increased around 68 to 78%, right? So there is a significant quantum jump in the women's participation in the Gram Sabha meetings that are being held at the grassroots level. And even so, it also leads to the economic empowerment of women as well. Now, how it has leads to the economic empowerment of women? Particularly, we need to talk about the self-help groups, and we should also talk about access to microfinance that women can actually have. And SHG is made possible, or microfinance is also made possible through SHG bank linkages program. Now, when more and more women are getting access to microfinance under the self-help group with lower interest rates, loans with lower interest rates, so women can actually become entrepreneurs. So they can actually become entrepreneurs at the grassroots level, and the women leaders would actually provide them the relevant assistance, necessary hand-holding support to become a successful entrepreneurs, such as skilling, training, and marketing assistance or marketing support. So all these essential facilities are being provided for women. So here, collective mobilization of women would be done. Collective mobilization and collective development of women would take place. Collective or inclusive development of women would take place at the grassroots level. So this is how women leaders would lead, women leaders would support not just the political empowerment but also the economic empowerment at the grassroots level, because they take up measures for the capacity building of women, right? So this is also another major reason that this 33% of the reservation for women has led to the economic empowerment of women as well. Now one thing that we should understand, when women are economically independent or economically self-reliant, that is very important here. So when women are economically self-reliant, don't you think that their decision making power in the family would substantially increases? So they actually take important decisions in the family with regard to family, right? And apart from that, when women are financially independent, it would further leads to the political empowerment as well as social empowerment of women, political empowerment and social empowerment of women. And women are aware about their rights, and women can actually raise their voice, against injustice, against domestic violence, against discrimination, against gender inequality. So therefore it actually has a multiplier effect. So that thing we should understand here. And we have already discussed that how economic empowerment would lead to increased decision making power of women, right? And even women can actually raise voice, and women can actually work in different social sector or different areas where it would have a larger impact. For example, increasing literacy rates for women, bridging digital divide, bridging gender inequalities, women education. This is also another area that they could actually work on, women education. And even domestic violence, gender discrimination, and participation of women in economic activities. So all these are different areas that women leaders can work at the grassroots level, and it would lead to the inclusive growth and development. And particularly we should talk about the woman-centric development, right? So woman-centric development can be achieved at the grassroots level through the Panchayati Raj institutions, and particularly the 33% of the reservation that has been provided by this particular legislation. And similarly, women can actually address the critical issues that are existing at the grassroots level. For example, inadequate access to education, inadequate access to healthcare facilities, lack of drinking water or drinking water shortages that the village has been facing, and family planning facilities, hygiene, health. So all these issues are very, very common at the grassroots level. And in fact, women have a lot of potential to address all these issues, right? So in fact, there are a lot of successful case studies as well, where women have played a very, very important role in addressing key social challenges in different villages, right? So a woman's potential has to be identified. And another major problem that women have been facing is domestic violence. And in fact, United Nations has also called domestic violence as a silent pandemic, or it is being called as another pandemic, because around more than one third of women have been suffering with, or more than 33% of the women have been suffering with the problem of domestic violence. So women are not the key decision makers at the level of family. So what are the reasons? So patriarchy is a reason. Patriarchy is a one reason, and lack of decision making power for the woman in the family. And similarly, women are not financially independent, lack of financial independence of women. So women literacy rates, illiteracy, so illiteracy is existing. And apart from illiteracy, there are other problems also. For example, they are unaware about their rights. So unaware about rights, gender inequalities that are existing, gender inequalities, and similarly the social approval or societal approval of domestic violence or male domination over female. So all these reasons, all these are the major reasons for the domestic violence at the grassroots level. And in fact, we have just discussed that UN has called this domestic violence as a silent pandemic, because according to UN statistics, more than 33% of the women have been suffering with the problem of domestic violence. Now, what role the women leaders can actually play at the grassroots level to address the problem of domestic violence? So in fact, women leaders can actually empower women with information about the rights that they have, and women leaders can also make women financially independent as well. And financially independent means that their decision making power in the family would also substantially increase, and the perception in the society about women would also change. So therefore, women leaders at the grassroots level can actually address the issue of domestic violence that women have been facing, right? So in fact, it is being said that domestic violence at the grassroots level has substantially declined because of women pradhan or sarpanchas, right? And even women representatives take up proactive measures to address the issue of domestic violence. And in fact, victims of domestic violence, they also feel more and more safer, because they can actually share their grievances to their women representatives, and these women representatives also take measures because they are also sensitive about this issue, and they also take adequate measures to address the problem of domestic violence. So however, here we need to understand that there are some issues that women representation, there are some issues in women representation with respect to the Panchayati Raj institutions. For example, there is a substantial level of illiteracy that has been existing, and lower levels of education among women who are being elected as the representatives of the Panchayati Raj institutions. And because of that reason, there is a new different type of a domination mechanism that has been coming in, which is known as Pati Panchayat system, right? Or it is also known as Pradhan Pati system, right? So it is complete a male domination, even though 33% reservation has been provided for the women. And in fact, women are also overburdened with the family responsibilities, and it is being said that women have the dual burden. So women have the dual burden because women have to take care of the responsibilities at the family level, and also women should also perform the function as a political leaders. So this would create another major problem for the women when they are working as a representatives at the grassroots level. And in fact, there are it is being believed that women at the grassroots level, particularly women who are the representatives of a particular village, so they are lacking the communication skills. So in order to overcome this particular problem, so training has to be provided for the women so that they could actually improve their communication skills. And for this particular reasons, we could actually rope in NGOs and other civil society organizations which are working on in the area of women education, women empowerment, so they can actually work on improving the communication skills of women as well. And similarly, women who are being elected as a representatives of the panchayats, they are very often having a poor economic background as well. So poor economic background is one reason which has been keeping them within the which has been keeping them in the they are not able to perform well. So their efficiency is being reduced because of their poor socio-economic background. So therefore, in this context, capacity building has to be done, right? So there has been poor efforts for the capacity building of women, but here the focus should be on capacity building of women. And similarly, indifferent attitude and behavior of officials who are working in the system, and misguidance by the local bureaucracy as well. So in fact, bureaucratization, politicization of the panchayati raj institutions. So because of that particular reason, there is an excessive influence of the bureaucracy and the political the politics also, politicians also. So therefore, there is a very often a misguidance by the local bureaucracy. And similarly, as we have just discussed, that there has been mounting pressure from the political party, because very often these representatives are being elected from one particular political party, and that's why the panchayats at the local level very often promoting or implementing the schemes that are introduced by the respective political parties, right? So in fact, these panchayats are being used by the political parties to fulfill their existing vested interests. So this is also another major problem. And undue interference by the husband, so this is what is called as pati panchayat system or sarpanch pati system that we have discussed, right? So in pati panchayat system, imagine that a woman sarpanch is being elected. So despite women sarpanch is being elected because of patriarchy, because of poor socio-economic background, because of illiteracy, lack of communication skills, on behalf of a woman sarpanch, her husband is taking over her responsibilities. And here, woman sarpanch is considered as a dummy head, right? So the real power is with her husband. So this is what is called as the pati panchayat system, or sarpanch pati system. So that has been completely shadowing the original purpose of providing 33% reservation for women. So therefore, with the establishment of the panchayati raj institutions in our country through the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, so we could actually provide an opportunity for the woman to become a good administrator, a good decision maker, and in fact a good leader as well. However, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992 is considered as a milestone in this regard, and in fact it also provides a chance for women to come forward, to realize their potential, to unleash their potential, to become a true leaders, and also substantially increase women's representation in the higher levels of the political institutions, thereby leading to economic empowerment and political social empowerment of the woman as well. So I hope you have understood this particular topic. So next topic is municipalities. So municipalities is also a very important topic, and in fact these municipalities are established by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act in the very same year of 1992. So it talks about the municipalities, and in fact, urban areas are considered as growth engines of our country, and municipalities actually play a very important role in the local governance structure of India, right? So as I have already told you that they are known as growth engines of our country, urban areas are considered as growth engines of our country, and these urban areas are under the administration of these municipalities, right? So they are under the administration of these municipalities, and because of that reason municipalities will play a very, very important role in the local governance at the urban areas. And in fact, there are these urban local bodies which are actually responsible for managing and administering cities and also towns. And in fact, the urban local bodies which are established under 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, so they are being entrusted with various functions and responsibilities such as urban planning, providing basic services, infrastructure development in urban areas, maintenance of public amenities, collection of tolls, taxes and property taxes. So all these responsibilities are being assigned to the urban local bodies through 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, in fact, there are some constitutional provisions also, because panchayats would be dealt by Article 243 Clause A to Article 243 WO. And from there onwards, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, so it deals with Article 243Q and other different articles. So Article 243Q, so it shall be constituted in every state, Nagar Panchayat, municipal and municipal corporations. And Article 243R, so it talks about the composition of municipalities and so how members are being elected and how chairperson is being elected. So all these details are being provided in Article 243R of the Indian Constitution. Similarly, Article 243T, it provides reservations for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and also reservation for the women as well. And Article 243V, so it talks about disqualification of members, and 243W, so it talks about powers, authority and responsibilities of these municipalities. And in fact, there are 8 items which are enshrined in the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution, and in fact the state legislature can actually devolve any of these 18 items or all these items. So these are certain items that can be devolved to the municipalities by the state legislatures. And in fact, Article 243X of the Indian Constitution, it talks about the power to impose taxes by and funds of municipalities. And Article 243Y, it talks about State Finance Commission, and it is being constituted by 243I of the Indian Constitution. And 243Z, so audit of accounts of municipalities. And 243ZG, so it talks about the bar of courts to interfere in the electoral matter. So these are some important constitutional provisions that actually deals with the municipalities in the urban areas. Now, municipalities have been facing certain issues. So what are the main issues that municipalities have been facing nowadays? So it is being said that municipalities are having a lesser functional autonomy, right? So that is a main problem. So we have just discussed that the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution, there are 18 items have been mentioned, or 18 functions have been mentioned in the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And these 18 items or the 18 functions are to be required to be performed by the urban local bodies, but many states have not yet devolved these powers to the urban local bodies or municipalities, and that is the main problem. So if state legislature devolve all these powers to the municipalities, so they could actually have a more autonomy when it comes to their functions, right? So this is one main problem that the urban local bodies have been facing. And in fact, so there are certain functions that these urban local bodies they perform, and those functions are considered as a core urban functions, and these core urban functions are continued to be performed by either by respective state government or even the parastatal agencies that are already created by the state governments. And because of creation of these parastatal agencies, those agencies have been undermining the responsibilities, undermining the powers of the existing municipalities. So this is another major issue that the municipalities have been facing. So there are some additional responsibilities also. For example, in Kerala, in addition to the traditional rules of waste management, right, so the municipalities have the traditional role of waste management, solid waste management, liquid waste management. So the other additional responsibilities are also being given to the municipalities as well. For example, implementation of the government programs at the grassroots level. So all other additional responsibilities are being accorded. So additional responsibilities are being given, but powers are not given to them, and finances are also not devolved to them. So therefore, these are the other problems that the the municipalities have been facing. And similarly, there has been a huge concentration of power as well, because unlike 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act that specifically deals with the panchayats at the grassroots level, so that actually provides for a 3-tier or 3-level panchayat at the village level, at the intermediate level, and at the district level. But power in urban bodies is consolidated in a single municipal body. So concentration of power is also another major issue that these urban local bodies have been facing. There's a lack of proper planning when it comes to urban development. And similarly, these urban local bodies do not have adequate sources of finance. So because of that reason, they don't have adequate resources to fund infrastructure programs, to maintain or manage the existing developmental programs, right? So they mostly dependent on transfers from the either central government or the state government, like finances, right? So in fact, recently there has been an abolition of octroi tax. Property tax is the single largest source of own revenue for the urban local bodies. However, tax collections are considered very, very low, and due to wide exemptions. And there is also an undervaluation of property and incomplete land registers as well. So therefore, it says that there is a low revenue potential for these municipalities, and low revenue means they are not able to sustain the existing infrastructure projects. They're not able to manage or maintain public infrastructure, right? So these are the problems, and they are also excessively dependent on the other resources that they are getting apart from its own resources, and that actually limits its own capacity. And there is also a poor link with the urban citizens as well, because citizens in urban areas are rarely included or involved in the decision making process, particularly marginalized people or even the vulnerable sections of the society. Because marginalized sections of the society or vulnerable sections of the society, so they are the ones who have been facing the brunt of poor urban planning and development, right? So therefore, they must be involved. All relevant stakeholders must be involved, and there should be an appropriate link which should connect all stakeholders when it comes to the urban planning and also urban development. And that's how inclusive urban development can be achieved. So what should be way forward in this context? So in this context, the way forward should be, so we need to leverage the city economy, and that is very, very important here. So city economy in the sense that every city has a certain needs, and the needs of that particular city must be identified, and city should be considered as a distinct unit of economy as well. And the municipal bodies must take efforts to improve ease of doing business, and they should also catalyze adequate investments into the city as well. And apart from that, they should focus on decentralization and metropolitan governance as well. Because cities in India, there are large number of cities, right? So there are large number of cities, and within cities, apart from the municipal bodies, there are also other agencies also with conflicting mandates and dispersed duties as well, right? So this has been creating a sense of confusion within the existing bodies about their mandate, about their responsibilities, about their powers. So therefore, there should be a decentralization in these urban areas, and there should be more clarity when it comes to the powers and finances, responsibilities of the urban local bodies. And similarly, so there is a need to discuss there is a need to uh, encourage transfer of funds, functionaries and functions to the urban local bodies. For example, when I say functions, so there are 18 functions which are being listed in the 12th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So why can't the state legislatures can actually devolve almost all 18 functions to the state legislatures, right? So similarly, apart from that, when we talk about the funds, so we have just discussed that the urban local bodies are lacking funds. So in fact, in this context, when state governments devolve all these 18 functions to the municipalities, so there is a probability that they could work autonomously and they could also increase their own revenues. So funding would also be taken care of along with its own funding. So there will be transfers from the state government and also central government as well, and that funding would be used in the development of the urban infrastructure. And similarly, more and more functionaries, particularly the skilled workforce, technical workforce, must be provided for the urban local bodies so that they could play a very important role in the urban planning. And even downstream accountability is also very, very important. So accountability of the representatives and also the government officers in the municipality and even at the ward and area levels. So this can be done through a downward accountability mechanisms. A mechanism called social audit can be introduced in this context. So social audit will ensure participation of people in auditing the funding of municipalities, and apart from that, it would also result in transparency as well as accountability of people, transparency and accountability of the representatives as well as the government officers in the urban local bodies. And similarly, finances, so strengthening finances for these urban local bodies and also civic agencies, and this thing must be done. So this actually includes the market oriented revenue models, value capture, and also decentralization, fiscal decentralization, medium term fiscal plans, public private partnerships in urban infrastructure development. So all these things can be done for strengthening finances for these urban local bodies. And even urban local bodies can also issue the municipal bonds as well. Municipal bonds is not a new concept because already there are a lot of municipalities in India which have issued these municipal bonds to raise funds, and those funds can be invested in the long-term developmental projects by these municipalities. And citizen participation is also very, very important for the success of these urban local bodies. So urban local bodies should actively involve citizens in the planning and in the development, and there should be a proper feedback mechanism. So this actually result in sustainable urban planning and urban development, and that will sustain India's growth efforts in the long term as well. So the next topic is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So we'll be discussing about the Comptroller and Auditor General of India as well, right? So in fact, he is also called as CAG, right? So he is considered a guardian of the public purse, and he is also considered as a head of Indian Audit and Accounts Department. And in fact, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, he upholds the constitution and he also upholds the laws which are being passed by the parliament in the field of financial administration. And we can actually understand the importance of the Comptroller and Auditor General from the words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has actually called CAG as one of the bulwarks of the democratic system or the democratic government in India. So there are some constitutional provisions which have been given. So these constitutional provisions specifically deals with the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. For example, Article 148 deals with the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. 49 empowers the Parliament to prescribe the duties and powers to the Comptroller and Auditor General. And similarly, Article 150 of the Indian Constitution, it advises the President about the prescription of the form in which the accounts of the Union and also states shall be kept. And Article 152, so reports of the CAG relating to the accounts of Union shall be submitted to the President, and then President cause them to be laid before each house of the Parliament. So these are some important constitutional provisions with respect to the CAG, right? So in fact, in the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, independence of Comptroller and Auditor General is very, very important, right? So what are the measures, what are the mechanisms which actually ensure the independence of this particular institution? So that is what we should actually discuss. So in order to ensure independence of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, there is a security of tenure provided for him, right? So security of tenure is that CAG is appointed by the President by warrant under his hand and seal, and in fact he has given a fixed tenure of 65 years or 6 years, whichever comes earlier. So what is the removal process of the CAG? So he will be removed by the President under the same procedure as the Supreme Court judge of the Supreme Court. Again, it provides a greater independence for the CAG. And in fact, so there will be no post-retirement benefits for the CAG to ensure that he functions, impartial manner. He functions without any bias, and office of CAG remains independent, right? So because he will not be eligible for any further office under either central government or state government. And salaries and other service conditions of the CAG, so they are being determined by the Parliament, and same cannot be altered to the disadvantage of CAG after his or her appointment. So this also ensures the independent functioning of the CAG. And similarly, all expenses of office of CAG, including his salaries, allowances, expenditure of his office, pensions, are all charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. That means whenever we talk about any expenses which is being charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India, it is not subjected to the parliamentary voting, right? So I hope you have understood this. And the administrative powers of the CAG. So conditions of service of people serving in the Indian and Audit Department whose head is CAG, and the administrative powers of the CAG are actually prescribed by the President after consultation with the CAG. And in fact, no minister can actually represent the CAG in the Parliament. No minister can be called upon to take any responsibility for any actions done by the CAG. So these measures actually ensures the independence of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. However, there are certain limitations in the office of CAG. So what are the limitations that it has been suffering, right? So limitations with respect to appointment, because the appointment of CAG is completely under the discretion of the executive, which limits its role of holding the executive accountable. So there might be a compromise on the part of CAG to hold executive accountable. And in fact, the Auditor General and not a Comptroller, right? So its report is post facto. That means it can audit expenditure only when they are being done. And there is a limited usefulness. Critics also argue that CAG has a limited usefulness in India because auditors know what is auditing and not administration. And in fact, it is considered as highly pedestrian function, which a narrow perspective and a very limited usefulness. And he is having a shorter tenure of 65 years or 6 years, which is whichever is whichever comes before. So the age cap of 65 years affects the proper functioning of the institution as well. And in fact, it has exceeded its mandate in several cases, because it has been criticized for exceeding its mandate in cases like reports on 2G, coal black allocations. So they have made outlandish or sensational figures of losses or corruption. So that's why CAG comes under the criticism. And there are also limited resources with the Controller and Auditor General. For example, they are having shortage of manpower, and they are having more and more responsibility. So that has resulted in a very few accounts actually being audited annually. Similarly, so it discourages risk taking, because CAG, while looking into the wisdom, faithfulness, economy of policy, may not consider the practical problems of administration. So independence, so conflict of interest arises as former secretaries, for example, usually IAS officers, are being appointed as the CAGs. So CAG has been facing criticism that this may also compromise with the independence of the CAG. And in fact, certain expenditure which can be considered as a secret expenditure, and CAG has no role when it comes to auditing this secret expenditure. And in fact, intentional obstruction in audits, there is a delayed supply of crucial documents to the CAG, and that sometimes the information would also be denied to the CAG. So therefore, this actually obstruct the auditing process by CAG of central and state government accounts. And similarly, reductive pricing is also another major problem, and no criteria for the appointment of CAG is being appointed, and there is a huge executive influence in the appointment of CAG is another major problem. And lack of statutory recognition for the official staff of the Indian and Audits Department. So all these are considered as limitations of the office of the CAG. So what should be the way forward in this context? So the way forward is that, so appointment should be more and more independent, and that means the executive influence in the appointment of the CAG must be reduced. For that purpose, there is a need to constitute a multi-member body on the lines of Lokpal and National Human Rights Commission. And similarly, there should be a timely access to information, just like Right to Information Act. So these auditors under CAG should also be provided priority access to records within 7 days. Else, department head from where the information is being sought needs to give an explanation, or he needs to explain the circumstances for the delay in providing all relevant documents to the CAG. And All India Conference of Public Accounts Committees of Parliament and State Legislatures. So complete independence of the CAG by making it a part of the Public Accounts Committee like UK and Australia. And there should be implementation of modern tools. For example, due to the increased complexity of auditing functions, the need of the hour is to incorporate modern technology like artificial intelligence, big data analytics in auditing process. And statutory status to this Indian Audit and Accounting Department. So that will further improve the quality of audit and also gives credibility to work done by the officers and staff belonging to the Indian Audit and Accounts Department. So thereby it would result in greater impact and better outcomes as well. So ultimately, in the conclusion, the CAG has constitutional and statutory mandate, and it also has the responsibility to ensure public accountability and transparency, right? So ultimately it would result in effective service delivery and good governance as well. So I hope you have understood about the CAG, independence of the CAG, limitations of the office of CAG, and the way forward as well. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.